Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we are going to create this stylized medieval hat and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, please don't forget to leave that like, and if you're new around here, hit that subscribe. Now let's jump into Blender and let's just select the light here, press X, delete, and we'll actually use the cube this time. So let's select it, tap into the edit mode, and we'll press G then Z and 1 to move this 1 meter up so the origin point is at the bottom. And now we can tab out and press S to scale this up a little bit. So it's at least 4 meters, maybe a little bit more. And now let's tab into the edit mode, press 3 for face select, select the top face, press G then Z and move this down a little bit, like this. And now press 2 for edge select, select these two edges, so hold shift, select the other one, right click and subdivide. And now we can just grab this one, press G then Z and move this up to create the shape we want to make. Now press 1 for vertex select, select these two, press J to join them, and on the other side as well. And now let's press 3 for face select, and we're gonna separate some of the geometry and get rid of the one that we don't need. So on the bottom, let's just select the face, press X and delete it. And now let's select the top faces of the roof, press P and separate the selection. And let's do the same here, so select the shield here on the other side as well, press P and separate. And now here we can just press Ctrl R, create a cut here in the middle, right click to release, and press Ctrl B to bevel. And now let's press Ctrl R and create one near the top here, and again here in the middle. And now let's press Ctrl R here, left click, right click to release, and then Ctrl B and create one like this. And this will be the door and window, so we can press 3 for face select, select the window, hold shift, select the door faces and press Alt E and extrude along normals, and let's extrude it inside like this. And additionally here near the bottom we can just delete this one by pressing X. And now we can simplify things a little bit, so let's tab out and let's select these shields, and we can go into the modifiers panel, let's tab into the edit mode, and we can just delete the back one, so press X and delete it. And we can just go ahead and add mirror modifier, and instead of X-axis we'll use Y-axis, so it's back there. And let's do the same thing here, so go into the edit mode, select this one, press X, delete, tab out, and let's add that mirror modifier here as well, and here we'll leave it at X. And now enable clipping. If you just started Blender and you have trouble following tutorials like this, make sure to check out my courses as well, where in addition to the step-by-step instructions you also get full in-depth explanation of all the tools and all the steps, and you get to learn everything from simple low poly design all the way to full character illustration, textured environments, even a little bit of sculpting and hard surface modeling. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. And now we can tab into the edit mode, press Ctrl R, left click and right click to release, and press Ctrl B to create the bevel just like that. And now alt click this bottom edge, press G twice to start sliding up, and hold Alt key and slide this down just like this. And now press 3 for face select, select this one in the middle, press P and separate the selection again. And now we can press 2 for edge select, select these two edges on the sides, press S then Y and just scale them outside like this. And now press A to select all and Alt E and extrude along normals, and it will create beams like this. And we don't need to go so far, so something like this here, because then we can press 3 for face select, select the face on the bottom and press Alt S and just move this down. And now if you think this is exaggerated a little bit too much, you can press 2 for edge select, select the bottom one, press G twice and just slide it back here a little bit, so the slope isn't so harsh, and do the same thing here. Okay. And now on the other side we didn't touch this, so let's toggle the X-ray, select everything here on the other side, press X and delete vertices, and we'll introduce another mirror modifier here, and this time disable X and enable Y. So this way, just by creating this one object, we were able to create a supporting structure for the whole roof. And now let's toggle the X-ray back, let's select the middle part of the roof, tab into the edit mode, select this edge, press G twice and slide it back a little bit, so we leave some space there. Okay, and we'll come back to the roof later, so let's create another set of beams. So tab out, select the bottom structure, tab into the edit mode, press 1 for vertex select, select this one, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now we can tab out and let's press Shift A and we can add a plane, tab into the edit mode and just scale it down, something like this. And now we can tab out and press G, then Shift Z to move it additionally closer here. And this way we'll create the beam on the corner there. So tab into the edit mode and just press E to extrude this up. And this is probably too thick, so we can just press A and then S, then Shift Z to scale this on X and Y axis like this. And now let's look from the front. Toggle the X-ray and select the top and hold Ctrl, Alt and Shift and S and then Y to skew it like this, and then press G, then Z and move this down so it kind of better follows the structure there. And we can additionally press G, then Y and move it towards the front here so it doesn't go out this way, just like that. And now we can apply the mirror modifier here as well, and we can use the eyedropper to pick the house and then enable Y as well, so we now have each corner covered. And let's create a beam right here in the middle. So tab into the edit mode there, 2 for edge select, select this one, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it there, tab out, and again we'll create a new plane, tab into the edit mode, scale it down by pressing S, and then RX and 90 to rotate 90 degrees along X axis. Let's confirm this, press S then X and scale it up. And now we can press E to extrude this, and additionally we can press A and scale it by pressing S then X again on the X axis so it covers the whole part there. So this will be the structural support. Now again we can create a mirror modifier here and use the house as the center, and then disable X and enable Y, and it jumps to the other side. And now I want to create some supporting structure near the bottom here, so let's select the house here, tab into the edit mode, and we can just press 3 for face select, alt click this loop all around, press Shift D to duplicate, right click to release, and then P and separate the selection. Tab out and just select the new object by clicking through the objects on the viewport, tab into the edit mode, and we'll just modify this and delete some parts. So I want to delete these faces right here, press X and delete them. And then press 2 for edge select, alt click this loop and press G then Z and move this down here. And now let's add some more geometry here in the back, so press Ctrl R and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel to, for example, 3. And here let's do few of these cuts one by one. And now press A to select all and Alt E and extrude faces along normals. And let's extrude this outside like this, and we can additionally press S for even scaling and create something like this. Now alt click this loop again and press G then Z and move this down like this. And additionally we can introduce some variation here, so we can select some of these edges, press G then Z and move this up here as well. Here we can select both, so we have some nice stylized results. And now let's press 1 for vertex select, toggle X-ray, do a selection down here, press 3 for face select, so all the faces should be selected, press X and just delete them, so we keep this nice and optimized. And now let's take care of the door and the window, so tab out, select this, tab into the edit mode, and we can alt click this loop, press Shift D, right click to release and P and separate the selection, tab out, select the new object, and now tab into the edit mode, press A to select all and Alt E and extrude along normals. And additionally we can press S for even scaling and do something like this. And now we can just select these faces in the front, press G then Y and extrude them out. And now press 2 for edge select, alt click this loop, and again we'll press P and separate the selection. You don't need to duplicate it if it's not faces, if it's only edges. Tab out, select the new object, tab back in, press A and F to fill, and then G then Y to move this back inside like this. So this is the base for the door. And now for the window we'll do a similar thing here. So tab into the edit mode, press 3 for face select, select this face here, press P to separate the selection, tab out, select the new object, tab back in and press Ctrl R and create a loop cut down there. Now press 3 for face select, select this one, press P and separate the selection. And let's press A and then I to inset and create an inset like this. Now select the bottom face, press X and delete it. 2 for edge select, select this one, and here we're gonna switch to vertex snapping, press G then Z and hold Ctrl and snap it to the bottom vert there. And now before we extrude this, press 3 for face select again, select this one, press P and separate. And now A and extrude this outwards like this, tab out, select this one, tab in, select all, press G then X and move it towards the front. Now tab out and select the last one, tab into the edit mode and extrude it all the way here. Now we can add some inner frame, so tab out and we can just slice this up a little bit. So let's press Shift D to duplicate it, tab into the edit mode and press Ctrl R and create a cut here in the middle, right click to release. And we can do the same thing here. Now hold Alt and Shift, select this one, press Ctrl B and just create the bevel here. And then 3 for face select, select these faces, press X and delete them. And now these two, and press P and separate them because we want them as a separate objects. And now press A and E to extrude. Tab out, select these, tab into the edit mode and then extrude these as well, but don't go all the way. So something like this should look quite nice. Now let's select the shield here, tab into the edit mode and we can toggle X-ray and let's press 2 for edge select, select the bottom one, right click and subdivide so we create one vertex there, and now press 1 for vertex select, select these two and press J to join. And now let's select the one on the other side, press X and delete. And we'll add another mirror modifier here as well. Press 1 for the front view, press K for knife, snap it right here and press A for angle snap. Do a cut like this and then confirm with enter. And now press Ctrl R and create 2 more cuts, increase with the mouse wheel, right click to release. And finally we'll press 2 for edge select, select these 3 edges and just press V to separate them, but right click so they jump right back, but these are now separated, so we can press A and extrude this and you will see why just in a second, like this. Now let's go to the overlays and enable face orientation and we can now toggle the X-ray and we'll see if we have some flip normals, and indeed these are flipped, so press A and Shift N to recalculate. And the door, there'll be similar story, so let's select it. So enable X-ray view, press 1 for vertex select and we have these two that we don't need, so press Ctrl X to dissolve and now Ctrl R and increase number of cuts to 2, something like this. And similar as before, press 2 for edge select, select these two and press V to separate this, now A to select and E to extrude. And now we can disable X-ray view and still this is flipped, so press A and Shift N to recalculate the normals. And this should all work nicely now. And let's add some bevel modifiers. So let's tab out, let's select the roof beam and let's collapse the mirror modifiers and let's add the bevel. And here we are going to increase the segments to 3 and just reduce the amount so it's nice and sharp like this, but we still keep some of that curvature there. And now in the geometry section let's switch this to arc, and in the shading let's enable harden normals, right click shade smooth. And now we're just gonna select everything here but deselect the roof, so hold Ctrl and deselect the roof. And I think we should deselect the house as well, so hold Shift and deselect it by clicking twice. And now let's hold Shift and select the beam again so it's highlighted in yellow. And we can now click this little triangle and copy to select it. That will transfer the same bevel modifier to all of these other objects. Right click and shade smooth. So now we can just go around the scene and fine tune all of these bevels. So for example here we might need to adjust the corners here as well, but here in the middle this is merged, so let's just uncheck the merge on the mirror modifier and it should start working nicely here. And now let's select all of these window parts and hold Alt key and then reduce the amount, and you will see it will reduce on all of them. And finally we can go ahead and create some roof. But before we do, let's hold Shift S, snap cursor to world origin, let's press Shift A and we'll create a plane, tap into the edit mode, press S to scale it up like this, and right click and subdivide and press Shift R to repeat this a few times like this. Now press 1, select some of these vertices and we can enable proportional editing, press G then Z and increase the fall off with the mouse wheel. So we create some bumps and, you know, a little bit of a terrain here like this, so it looks a little bit better. And now disable proportional editing, press 2 for edge select, alt click this loop, and then alt and shift and select all of these others, press E then Z and extrude this down, and then press S then Z and 0 to flatten it out, press G then Z and move this up. So this is roughly a cube in the corner, and then we can press E then Z and continue the extrusion. And now if you tab out and press Ctrl 2, that will add subdivision modifier and create this nice smooth surface. We can right click and shade smooth, and this will create the base for the diorama. And now let's hold shift and right click here. We're gonna create a shingle for the roof. So let's press shift A, add a plane, tab into the edit mode and press S to scale it down like this. And now let's tab out and let's modify the rotation. So we'll need to enable some snapping. So let's enable face project and align rotation. And now if you press G then hold Ctrl, it will snap on the surface and we can place it like this. And now we can go back into the edit mode by pressing tab and modify this. So let's select this edge, let's look from the front, enable X-ray view, and we can just press E and extrude it like this. So it has a little bit of an angle. And now press Ctrl R, increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel here, left click and right click to release, and now press 1 for vertex select. Select these two and press G twice and slide them back a little bit like this. And now press A to select all and Alt E and extrude along normals like this. And now press 3 for face select. Select these 3 faces right here. We can disable X-ray view and press Alt S to make this a little bit more chunky like this. And now let's tab out, and before we duplicate this, let's add that build modifier here as well. So we can just hold shift, select for example the window, and just transfer the build modifier here. Select this and now increase the amount, right click and shade smooth, so we have something like this here. Now press Alt D, but don't click anywhere, press immediately Y so it starts moving on Y axis. Place it right here, and now before you do anything press Shift R so you can repeat the whole operation like this. And now you can decide whether you want 6 of these or 7, and you will make them a little bit smaller. So I think 7 will look nice, so I will just select them all, press S to scale it down, and then press G then Y to place them a little bit better here. And we can look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad, and here you can better see how it's aligned and how much you need to scale this. So now we can just look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad, press Alt D then Z and hold Ctrl to snap it on the roof like this. And now Alt D Z and hold Ctrl to snap this again, and I will do this several times. Unfortunately I cannot repeat this by pressing Shift R, but this is what you should be able to do in a short time. And now let's look from the side, select all of them like this, and now of course the roof is selected as well, so we can hold Ctrl and deselect this, collapse the build modifier, and let's add mirror modifier here, and let's use the eyedropper tool and the house to mirror it on the other side. And now you can see this is only for the highlighted object, but here you can just quickly copy to select it and you will have it everywhere. And now we can just click twice here to select the roof, tab into the edit mode, we can enable X-ray view, press 2 for edge select, select this one, hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it, and now tab out and let's press Shift A, and we can add a cylinder here, and let's modify the number of vertices to something like 16. Tab into the edit mode and press S to make this smaller, and then R, X and 90 degrees. Let's confirm. Let's look from the top, and we can disable the X-ray and press S then Y and scale it up so it kind of covers the whole shingle like this. Now look from the front by pressing 1 and enable X-ray again, and now we can press 1 for vertex select, and here you can see how far this needs to go, so it goes inside the shingle. So we can just select all of these vertices, press X and delete them to have something like this. And now we can just select these, press S, make this smaller, press G then Z, move this down, and press Ctrl R and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel like this, and then press S, then Shift Y to scale this on X and Z axis, and then press G then Z and move this down. So there's, a little bit of that shape there. And now we can press A, Alt E and extrude along normals, and we can go inside like this. Now disable the X-ray and we can see we have flipped normals, so press A and Shift N to recalculate them. Now tab out and let's hold Shift, select the shingle and copy the build modifier here as well. Now select it, right click and shade smooth, and we can now make it larger or smaller. And now let's look from the top by pressing 7 on a numpad, press G then Y, move it somewhere here, and press Alt D then Y, try to move it in the middle of the shingle and then Shift R, so you can repeat it 7 times and you have a roof like this. But of course, if this is too small, you don't need to follow the number of shingles, so I think it will be better. If this is larger. I will move it right here and then try to place just 4 of these like this, then maybe make it larger and move it back here. I think it will make a little bit, nicer stylized result. If you want some variation in the roof shingles, you can look from the side, select them all, but again we'll need to deselect the roof structure here, make sure all of the shingles are selected. And now you can hit slash on a numpad to isolate this, then switch the pivot point to individual origins, and let's enable proportional editing and random. And now if you select just few of these and press R then Y, you can kind of randomly rotate them, and just make sure you use the mouse wheel to make this influence quite large, but you can see how they're rotating at different angles here and there. And now you have some variation in the roof, so let's switch this back to median, switch this back to smooth and disable the proportional editing and hit slash on a numpad to exit the local view. And basically our medieval hut is ready. And now let's press Shift A, add a plane, let's look from the front, press G then Z, move this down here and just make this larger by pressing S. So we have some background there, and hit 0 for the camera view, and now press N for the side panel, and in the view settings enable camera to view, and now just scroll out with your mouse wheel. You can now use your viewport controls to place the camera, and I think something like this should work nicely. Now let's disable this, and with the plane still selected, make it larger so it covers the whole camera bounce like this. And now let's expand this bottom part and switch this to shader editor. I want to create some nice materials here. So let's go to render settings, switch this to cycles. I will enable GPU denoising and use GPU for the final denoising. And then press Ctrl B to limit the preview only for camera bounce. Press Shift A and add sunlight here. Press G then Z, move it up a little bit, even though the distance doesn't really matter here. And just press R and rotate it a little bit and increase the strength to something like 3. And let's preview this. And we'll modify the lighting, but for now I want this to create the materials. So let's create the background, create the new material, I'll call this BG, and just make it darker and increase the roughness all the way to 1. And now I want to highlight some edges. So let's select the beam, let's zoom in on our shader, and I'll press Shift A and search for ambient occlusion node, place it somewhere here and enable inside only local, and now introduce some add node and just subtract this from 1. So make sure you pick subtract and then duplicate this and use greater than and plug this right here, and you can preview this node and see what that does. And now let's just decrease this distance and increase the threshold so we create some nice edge detection here, just like this. And now of course I don't want the same material everywhere, but since this was the default material, but we can just duplicate it here and there as we go through this. So let's focus on this material right now, and let's create the noise texture here, right here, and let's press Shift A, let's search for mapping and coordinate, texture coordinate, and let's just plug UV here in the vector and plug this here and preview our noise. Now I'll press Shift A and let's search for ramp, plug it here, and let's just compress this so the noise is really compressed, and let's increase the scale so we actually see something happening there. Now this looks quite messy, but this will get better because we can increase the detail and roughness. And now compress this even more. And now let's tab into the edit mode. Press 2 for edge select, select this one, press U and mark seam, And now let's select these three right here, press U and mark seam. Now select all, U, and unwrap angle based. And now we can expand this window here and switch to UV editor so we can actually see our beam unwrapped. And now we can just select this here, press S then Y and scale it like this, and it will kind of protrude the texture right here. It will create these nice streaks, and then we can further modify them by applying different ramp configuration like this. And this will create, you know, a nice, you know, wooden grain here. And it's all procedural. Let's now tab out and let's plug this here. Let's press Shift A. We'll create a color, mix color node, plug it here, and now plug this into the factor, disconnect, and let's find some base color for the wood. I will desaturate this a little bit and make it a little bit darker, like this. Now press Ctrl C and Ctrl V to drop the color here as well, and now let's just make it brighter like that. And now additionally, let's press Shift A, another mix color node, and we'll plug this into the factor and play with the color of the edges here like this. And additionally, we can just play with these settings with the threshold and distance. Okay, and this way we got nice procedural cartoonish wood. And now we can just go around our scene and apply it and change the UVs. So first of all, I will remove it from the house and from this. And here, let's add some UV mapping. So I'll tab into the edit mode, alt click this loop, hold Alt and Shift, select this one as well. Press U and mark seam, enable X-ray view, alt click this loop in the back, press U and mark seam, and finally press 3 for face select and just select these two, press U and mark seam, and again U and unwrap angle based. And now I can see these edges are quite dense here. So first of all, let's rename this to wood and then duplicate it so we'll get another copy, and we can play with the threshold for smaller objects like this. And now tab back into the edit mode and we can compress this like before, so we create that nice, you know, grain like this. Let's modify this even further. Okay, and now we'll use the same material here on the door. Tab into the edit mode, and here we can just look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, press A and U, and project from view. And then collapse this. But again, I think the edge detection is too strong there. So we can modify this even further and make it really subtle for these smaller objects like this. And now back in the UV editor, we can just compress this and this will work nicely. Okay, and finally I will add the same material here. And for this one, I will tab in, press 2 for edge select, Ctrl Alt and click to select all of these edges, mark seam, and then press 3, select the bottom face and mark seam, and then we can unwrap this. And finally we can press S then Y and compress this so we get this nice grain. And here this will be completely same as with the door, so just mark these seams and this one in the back. Unwrap this and make sure all of these are pointing in the same direction. So I'll just hit L hovering over these islands, press R and 90 to rotate 90 degrees. And it doesn't really matter where you place them because now we just select all, press S then Y to compress. So we got something like this. And here we can just look from the side here, tab into the edit mode, press A to select all and unwrap, project it, and then collapse this. And probably we'll need to create another copy and just decrease this distance. And in the UV editor, find some place where the grain actually is. Like that. And here, let's do the same thing, project from view, but here we'll rotate it 90 degrees and collapse. And of course, we can switch this to this other one. And play with the threshold and distance as well. Okay, and now select this one, remove the material. Let's create a new one and we'll create an emission. Let's make it stronger and a little bit warmer. Like this. And now for these beams, let's tab into the edit mode. Press 3 for face select, select these two faces, press U and mark seam. Now press 2 for edge select, select the edge in the back, press A and let's unwrap this. And again, I will collapse this and apply one of these materials and do the same thing here basically. Unwrap and collapse. Okay, and here let's look from the front, tab into the edit mode, press A and let's project this. Let's use the second wood material and just collapse this as well, like that. And now we can just move it up and down to find some better structure. Okay, I really like this. So now let's select this part right here and we'll use the wood material, but just duplicate it, rename it to stone. And here I'm just gonna remove the UVs. And here I'm just gonna plug object mapping and change the color. So first let's try to just desaturate this. And it already looks much better. So we can use the same stone material here, duplicate it, rename to wall, and basically just change the colors so it's a little bit warmer and probably a little bit brighter. So here we can go brighter as well, something like that. And we probably don't need the edge detection here, so we can just press Ctrl X to dissolve this and leave only this setup right here. And for the roof we'll use the stone material, duplicate it. Now of course we'll reduce this edge detection distance and play with the threshold so we get some interesting look here, and use the same material right here. And let's rename it to roof. And of course we'll use different material here, so we can go something like dark red, then make this part brighter and this part even brighter. And if you want to quickly modify this, we can just plug in the hue saturation and just shift the colors using this slider to see if some better shade of the roof would look better. Something like this maybe. A little bit desaturated. Okay, and finally you can also play with the texture a little bit, the scale. And of course all of these have now the same structure, but if you're only working on a static scene and the camera won't be moving, you could use the camera mapping. It will basically make all of these different, but as you rotate you will see this is changing. So it's not optimal for animation of course, but for something very simple, as a simple illustration, this could work. And now finally I'll select the terrain and use one of these to duplicate them, call this ground, and change the colors. increase the roughness, and of course play with the scale. And now finally, let's look from the camera, select the background, and let's find some nice color that works with the rest. Maybe something like this, very subtle and warm. And now we can select the sunlight and rotate it to create more interesting shadows here on the side. And then hold Shift S, reset the cursor. We probably won't need the UV mapping anymore, or this part here. And let's press Shift A and we'll add an area light. Press G then Z, move it up, make it larger. Let's increase to something like 1500. And we can now switch to 3D cursor, press R then X, rotate towards the back, and then R and Z. So we have some backlight here. Press G then Z to go further away a little bit. And now we can make it much stronger. And now you can either make it cold or warm, depending on what you're going for. Now this wouldn't play that well with the background, so let's change the background. Okay, and finally we can duplicate this. Press Z to go further down. Press Alt R to reset the rotation. Make it smaller and go even lower to create the backlight on the background there, and increase to 10K for example, and change the color to something more neutral. Yeah, I think this will work nicely with this scheme, and maybe this color here can be a little bit more subtle, a little bit more desaturated, like this. Okay, I really like that. So let's now press Shift A, let's add a cube, let's scale it up so it covers the whole scene like this. And now let's create a new material there, remove the surface and add principled volume, and let's reduce the density to something like 0.015 so it adds a little bit of that fog. And maybe this is too harsh still, so something like 0.01. And now in the render settings, color management, you can increase the contrast, so something like medium high or high contrast, and play with the exposure to mitigate some of that fog, but the fog will really help to blend the scene together. And now in the world settings you can also play with the world color to add some ambience right here with this violet shadows like this. And now if you select the fog and play with the fog color as well, it will help you blend the scene even better. And now I think something like very high contrast would work the best. So that's it for today's illustration, and it looks like my camera went out, doesn't really matter too much. So I will now go ahead and finish this scene with some details so it really comes to life, and I will record this as time-lapse. So if you really want to finish the scene, you can just follow along and see what I'm doing on screen here. But those will be probably the same techniques that I used up until here, so you got all the important information to be able to follow along. And I really hope you enjoyed this one, and again, if you did, please leave that like. If you're new around here and want to learn more like this in the future, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.